Today on DNVR Buffs Live, a new 5-star quarterback has entered the chat. Also, we've got our guy Scott Procter here, and we are doing Big 12 picks. Let's dive right in. Let's go.
Welcome into the Toyota Lounge, driven by your front range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. It's DNVR Buffs Prime Time. The man is back.
What's good, my people? How are we feeling?
Great, man. Feels like it's been a million years since we played a game. I'm ready to get back out there.
For real. I feel that.
We got a lot to get to. We'll get Week 7 Big 12 picks. A pretty pivotal week in college football. Lots of big games in this conference. We'll get Scott's thoughts on the matchup this Saturday between Kansas State, but we start today.
Not to be confused with Scott's tots.
Not at all.
We start today, though. Keelon Russell. Yesterday, Steve Wiltfong of On3 reported that Colorado is in the mix for multiple 5-star quarterbacks.
Multiple, not just one.
Of course, Julian Lewis. Say that. The Buffs are not out on Julian Lewis.
Oh, no.
But
Julian Lewis isn't out on the Buffs.
No, absolutely not. And then Keelon Russell is into the chat. We got another 5-star to talk about. We already got a transfer player to talk about, too.
Things are heating up.
Things are getting crazy.
Let me just start by saying I don't think ever in my life I expected us to be talking about two different 5-star quarterbacks, considering the University of Colorado. So, yes, what a time to be alive. The Keelon Russell thing is obviously in its infancy.
Yep.
Just kind of sprouted up over the last couple weeks. And I watched him before the show, and he is very, very impressive. I think, what is he listed at right now? Like 6'2", 180?
6'3", 175.
Okay, yeah. 6'3" is even more impressive. And I think it was it Ryan Cotter upstairs from Social who compared him to Jaden Daniels? Daniels.
Yes.
Not to be confused with Jalen Daniels. And let me just say this about watching these high school quarterbacks, because it's hard for me to do this. It is very hard to go from watching Shedeur Sanders as a senior to watching high school quarterbacks and like put it into perspective. But I mean, from a arm strength, from a speed, from a pure size standpoint, while being 17, 18 years old, Keelon Russell, incredibly impressive. And was also pointed out, I believe, by RC that he won the Elite 11.
Yes, he did.
Very impressive.
He committed to Alabama on June 4th this last summer. This is a composite 5-star player, 11th ranked player in the country, 3rd quarterback in the country. For Duncanville High School, who is one of the best high school football teams in the entire country, let alone the state of Texas right now, he is a legit dual threat, too.
Yeah.
A legit dual threat.
And they've got tomorrow night, Duncanville DeSoto down there in Dallas. I know our people at DLLS have been talking about that matchup for a while now. I think it's number 1 in Texas versus number 4 in Texas. So that's going to be exciting. But Keelon Russell is the truth. Juju Lewis is also the truth. They're actually pretty different, I would say, stylistically.
I think so, too.
But, man, just the fact that we're getting the opportunity to watch and evaluate these guys is pretty crazy.
That's huge, man. And it tells me that Coach Prime and his recruiting staff, led by our guy Corey Phillips, they're not playing around, man. They're not just sitting back, resting on their laurels and, enjoying a 4-1 start to this season. They already obviously have eyes to the future, which to people who believe that, Coach Prime is, leaving after this year, that's bad news for those folks, right? I mean, again, having Juju kind of already in the mix as a potential flip candidate is already exciting enough because, again, I think we all feel very strongly about Juju and, his potential. I think that he is so similar to Shedeur in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And, again, it goes back to the conversation I had, before the season with our guy Phillip Dukes at On 3 is just both of their superpowers, talking about Shedeur and Juju as their processor.
Yep.
How quickly they process things and they can get to read one to the other side of the field, and figure out what a defense is doing, particularly post-snap, not just pre-snap as well. So I love Juju for those reasons. And I feel like, much like Shedeur, again, he's just enough athletic to where he can extend plays, make you pay with his legs if you, play man coverage and, have defenders with their back towards the line of scrimmage. So I love Juju. Russell is just to me, signaling that this recruiting staff is, locked in on the future. They're not just going to wait around on Juju, or somebody else, because they know that they need a guy. They need a quarterback at that spot to be the program that they want to be moving forward. And obviously Keelon Russell is, has the potential, the talent to be that guy. You mentioned he's more of a dual threat guy. But nonetheless, it's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. And, the Buffs flirting with a USC quarterback commit and an Alabama quarterback commit.
Yeah.
Y'all thought y'all would be saying that a couple years ago.
I was also going to say,
it's crazy.
New haters just dropped. Alabama fans,
sure.
Yeah,
not happy
true.
about this.
No.
Facts.
But they've been trying. Remember, go back to Antoine Hill.
Yep.
They've really targeted this class. And, of course, it matches up with Shedeur leaving to the NFL and stuff. But they've been trying, man. And it's not, everyone keeps throwing out, just go to the portal, go get this guy. They want someone to develop for the here and now.
Yeah.
They want a program cornerstone to develop at the quarterback position. That's what they're looking for.
And like we've always said, Jake, next year is like the beginning of a whole new journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's truly going to be a new chapter in like the Coach Prime saga. And I think it's very obvious that they want someone to be the main character of that story, other than, of course, Coach Prime himself. But like right now, you have this, it's Coach Prime, it's Travis, it's Shedeur, it's Shiloh, and obviously there's a bunch of other important pieces, but like that's the story, right? Next year starts this whole new thing, and I think that's honestly like, I know it's resonated with Juju as like you're the heir to the throne type of thing, and I think that's a powerful recruiting tool, if you'll call it that.
Yeah.
For this next person, like, look at the coverage and look at the spotlight that these guys get. You are going to get a brand new spotlight for a whole new like I said, chapter of this story, and you get to be that character that everyone is looking at. And that's, if you're him at quarterback, how would you not want that?
Yeah.
Nope.
And it's important too for Coach Prime and his staff to land one of these guys, not only for what they can individually bring to the program, but the ripple effects that one of those guys come into Colorado would have from a recruiting aspect, right? All the guys that would flock, whether they're committed or currently uncommitted, that would flock to Colorado as a result of Julian Lewis or Keelon Russell committing to be the quarterback of the future of the Colorado Buffaloes, to go alongside Coach Prime and the rest of his staff. Like that's a major storyline, and that's something that I think this staff has to take advantage of. You can get a really good 4-star quarterback, or you could, maybe roll with a quarterback that's already on the roster, but that's just not gonna have the same effect recruiting wise that landing a Juju or a Keelon Russell would, and that can't be understated.
Carrollton and Duncanville are two of the best high school football teams in the country.
Like Keelon Russell has the number 1 wide receiver on his team too.
DeCorian Moore,
Yeah.
Oregon
They have
commit.
a stacked team.
Yeah.
That Duncanville squad.
And someone mentioned in the chat, Keelon Russell, a select QB product as well.
What are the
You don't
odds?
say.
You don't say.
All right.
Interesting.
We do have another 5-star to get to today.
Keep
way.
them coming.
Our guy, Phillip Dukes, yesterday put out the video talking to Naeem Offord's dad. And he said that he thinks Naeem is interested in Colorado. And this goes way back. When this staff was hired in December of 2022, they offered a ton of kids. They got some commitments, right? Remember Winston Watkins? He's in this class too.
Yep.
But they offered a ton of 2025 kids, the best players in the 2025 class. Naeem Offord was one of them. He was offered like January 23rd, 2023. They've been recruiting this kid for a long time.
Yep. And this is, again, I remember talking about this a lot last year, but I don't know how much we've talked about it this year. The way that winning parlays into recruiting momentum,
they go hand in hand,
is incalculable. But honestly, what happened last year is kind of a great way of showing the opposite of it, right? Like, recruiting is harder when you aren't winning. And you have all that momentum in the beginning of the season, and as it started to fade off, it got tougher out there. They still were able to pull in, one of, if not the best transfer classes in the country. But you win this weekend, you keep stacking these wins, every player in the country starts looking in the mirror and saying, wait, should I be taking a visit to Colorado?
Yep.
How am I missing out on all of this fun that's being had out there, and the vibe and just the experience that happens at Colorado, which is completely unique from any other situation in college football. And so, the one thing that other schools have been able to have over Coach Prime really during his entire college coaching career is like, you can come here and compete for a national championship.
Right.
And obviously 5-star players are envisioning that for themselves. All of a sudden, Colorado starts becoming a contender. They contend for the Big 12 or win the Big 12 this year and play in the college football playoff. What do you have? What does Kalen DeBoer have over Deion Sanders in that situation?
Nothing.
That's a really good point, bro, because Deion Sanders, and we know this exists, but he's talked a couple of times this offseason in particular about the fact that negative recruiting exists when it comes to Colorado football. Other teams talking, down on a Colorado football program in hopes of, getting a recruit to sign with them and whatnot. And I feel like the main way to do that, at least this offseason in the past, is that they not winning for real.
Yeah.
That's not a serious program over there.
Yep.
But can you say that with a straight face through 6 weeks of this college football season? You can't at all. So I completely agree. That's definitely changing the tide when it comes to recruiting, the success that this team is having on the field. And I don't know too much about Naeem Offord, I'm not gonna lie, but just looking at some of this stuff around him, the number 1 overall player in the state of Alabama.
Yep.
A top 2 cornerback in the country.
Yep.
Composite 5-star.
Obviously, right, Ohio State commit, offers from everybody. Cooper Patania, a national recruiting analyst at 24/7 Sports, said Offord projects as a high-level multi-year starter with the ability to quickly become one of college football's top corner prospects and develop into a potential top 20 NFL draft choice.
Yep.
So this is like a blue chipper.
Oh, yeah. And was his dad the one talking about, that made the Travis Hunter comparison?
Yes. Which is where I was going to go next, but go ahead. That's
like another thing that only Colorado can play that card.
Exactly.
Because no one else has any precedent for it.
Yep.
But Coach Prime can tell you, hey, not only are you going to be, coached by the greatest cornerback of all time and continue to dominate on that side of the ball, but I'm going to get you in there and get you, on offense if you show that you can dominate on defense.
Yep.
Any other coach, I guess, could say it, but they have no proof. Whereas Coach Prime can say, I'm looking for the next Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
Think about the praise and just the way that Travis Hunter is being talked about right now. Being able to tell a guy you could be the next one is incredibly powerful. And no matter how much you love defense, everyone loves scoring touchdowns.
Of course. All right, let's take a quick break, then we'll finish up on the recruiting stuff. Shout out to our friends at Game Time. This game is sold out.
Sheesh.
The next home game is sold out.
Sheesh.
If you want to see the Buffs in the month of October, you got to go to Game Time. Make sure you sign up with the promo code BUFFS, BUFFS, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Check out the Game Time Picks feature. It shows you a bunch of detailed stuff about the stadium, exactly where the best deals are, view from your seat, all that good stuff. But not just games, concerts, events, whatever's going on in your city. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code BUFFS, BUFFS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time. Did you guys use Game Time?
Yes.
Yeah,
Let's go.
we got some special guests in the house all the way from
sir.
Atlanta. And they're using Game Time to go to the game as well. Also, shout out to our friends over at Red Hawk Roofing. We talked about your flooring. We've also got your roofing covered with Red Hawk Roofing. Listen to that. Wow. Supporting your local teams means also supporting local businesses like Red Hawk Roofing. These are big Colorado sports fans. We appreciate them for that. Some of our favorite partners to have here at DNVR. So if you had hail damage over the summer, wind damage, whatever it may be, hit up our friends over at Red Hawk Roofing and they will hook you up. 720-771-8921. Tell them DNVR sent you.
And not just the Travis Hunter point with Naeem Offord, but, I mean, look at how they recruited Cormani. Look at how they recruited Ellis Robinson. Remember that? Like, they always go relentlessly after these top corners. Naeem Offord is the next one, it seems, for Colorado.
Where is he currently committed?
He's currently committed to Ohio State. He committed back in February. They are coming for everyone's commit.
Yes.
They don't care how long you've been committed, how deep your relationships go. If you're a high-profile recruit, Colorado's coming to see if you're interested.
And it goes to what I was just saying. Like, there's nothing like Colorado. So the goal is to get these guys to campus one way or another.
Yeah.
And show them this. And not every person is going to say, this is amazing. But pretty damn good percentage of people who have got to experience a game since Coach Prime have been here have left feeling very great about their experience at Colorado. So it doesn't matter. None of that matters because the experience you could have anywhere else at any other school is not going to line up with what you have here. And so Colorado doesn't care where you've been committed to.
Last guy we have to talk about before we'll get to the K-State game. Donaven McCulley, Indiana wide receiver. He was their leading receiver last year for the Hoosiers.
Really good in 2023.
He had 48 receptions for 644 yards and 6 touchdowns. This year, though, he's played in 4 games. He only had 2 receptions. He took his
one of them was a touchdown.
Huh?
One of them was a touchdown.
One of them was a touchdown. Yeah. He stated his intent to redshirt at the beginning of the month, and now he's said that he will be entering the transfer portal. 6 schools have already emerged: Ole Miss, Tennessee, Michigan, Cincinnati, Miami, and Colorado.
My first thought, how do you have the top 6 and you're not even in the portal yet?
It's wild. But this guy is 6'5", 200 pounds.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exciting. And again, I mean, this is all just kind of around the same. Jake, you were saying it upstairs. You're like, I feel like every 5 minutes we're seeing something new come out of like, oh, yeah, he's committed here, but he's kind of interested in Colorado, or he's going to enter the portal, and he's going to be interested in Colorado. It's everywhere right now.
Taz Williams, we've talked about him before. Same thing. He's been committed to somewhere since like the summer. And he's talking about taking more official visits this season, Colorado being one of them.
Yeah. It's momentum is crazy right now.
It is.
And I can't even imagine where it's going to go when they win this week.
Yeah, this is the time. This is the time to capitalize on this momentum for sure.
All right, let's get to the K-State game. We kind of broke it all down yesterday, Scott. So what side of the ball you want to start on, and what are your kind of, I guess, notes?
Yeah, I mean, to me, at this point in the season, these are the 2 best teams in the Big 12, in my opinion, Colorado and Kansas State. I had, in the preseason, and I'll probably mention this a couple of times, my preseason predictions. I had Kansas State finishing 3rd. I had Colorado finishing 4th, right? And through 6 weeks or so, 6 games, I should say, 5 games, I should say, they looked apart. I mean, obviously, we know that Kansas State slipped up on the road against BYU, a few weeks ago. And to me, I really don't know what to make of that game. And honestly, I don't really know what to make of this matchup all the way, right? I've been going back and forth in my mind all week because, again, I feel really strongly about both of these teams. I feel really strongly about Avery Johnson, who we've talked about briefly, I believe, on this show before. I mean, DJ Giddens, you can throw in there as well. I mean, he's going to be a massive key to this game, as we all know. To me, he's the best running back in the Big 12. I voted him an all-conference preseason running back before the season when many guys were going with Ali Gordon, so to speak, R.J. Harvey.
Even Taj Brooks.
Even Taj Brooks, who's currently leading the Big 12 in rushing so far this season. And obviously, Giddens is only one of 4 running backs in the Big 12 with over 600 yards so far this season. So, dude's a load, man. He's gonna be, I think, the biggest test on the ground that this Colorado defense has faced this season. And when you throw in the fact that Avery Johnson is just as, if not more, dynamic, with his legs. I'm a bit, I wouldn't say worried, but I'm interested to see how this Colorado defense, which is much improved, particularly stopping the run, does facing its biggest test this weekend. You know, when you toss in Dylan Edwards, his explosive ability as well. I mean, this is a real threat that this offense poses, you know, in its ground game. And a lot of people make a lot of what Avery Johnson can or can't do as a passer, right? At least just yet. He's still very young. This is a true sophomore. So there's room to grow. We haven't seen Avery Johnson play his best football, particularly as a thrower yet. So I'm interested to see how he does against, like I said, this much improved defense. And, you know, Kansas State doesn't have – I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying best defense he's seen yet.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt about it. So this is just going to be fascinating. Like I said, I've been going back and forth all week. Preseason, I picked Colorado to go 9-3. One of those losses was this week to Kansas State. I think at this point, everything considered, I mean, I think I have to give Kansas State the edge. And I'm not saying that confidently, right? I'm envisioning like a 37-35 final.
Oof.
You know what I'm saying? I think Colorado certainly covers the 4.5 spread that they're projected at this week. But it's going to be interesting. It wouldn't surprise me at all, obviously, if Colorado won the game, even won the game handily, because I think Shedeur Sanders and his offense, they're going to do their thing. We talk about Shedeur has talked about before week 1, right? You give him a whole offseason to game plan and watch film
got a
for
whole
a
week,
team.
an extra week.
You get 2 whole weeks to game plan for, and you know, game plan for and plan for a Kansas State team that I think I tuned into the show briefly yesterday, and I think you mentioned that it's not really any standouts on the Kansas State defense, right? But they're so well coached, right?
Yep.
And I kind of look at this matchup a lot how I saw the NDSU game go, right? Which is a bit ironic because Kansas State's head coach Chris Kleiman came from North Dakota State.
Yeah.
And again, that's just a really well coached team. Their identity is through the run. They have a quarterback who can move the ball with his legs. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this one plays out. And obviously, Colorado, although they've been really strong defensively, particularly against the run, they struggled a bit against running quarterbacks this season. Cam Miller, I believe, he ran for 81 yards and a touchdown week 1.
Yep.
Sawyer Robertson, who was not a dual threat by any means,
Right.
ran for 82 yards and a touchdown Baylor game. And even KJ, you know, a couple weeks ago, they stymied him in that offense particularly, but he still ran for 76 yards and a touchdown. And that was one of the first things Coach Prime mentioned after the game, after the UCF game, that, you know, Jefferson still went for 70+. We're not completely where we want to be. So, you know, for those reasons, again, I think Shedeur and the offense, they're going to roll. They're going to score 30+ with pretty much ease. But I'm just really interested to see how Avery Johnson, how he performs on the road. Because last time we saw him on the road.
Last 2 times we saw him on the road.
Yeah.
Because Tulane wasn't his best game either.
No, it wasn't. And that was a game I actually saw pretty much a lot of waiting for the Colorado-Nebraska game to start later that night. And that was a really fun game.
Yeah, it was.
And I think you interacted with somebody that a Tulane quarterback can really play.
Yes.
He played lights out for a young guy. He played lights out. So it's gonna be interesting. I think this game can really go either way. I'm expecting a close game, but nonetheless, these are 2 of the best teams in the conference. And I think we're going to get, you know, a performance that dictates that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Colorado has a great chance to slow down DJ Giddens. And I think that if you do that, it really throws a wrench in the gears of everything that they want to do on Kansas State's offense. I also think that there are going to be, you know, times where they make big plays. That's just what it's a product of the amount of speed that they have on that offense. Like, you're not going to be able to contain everything from them. But I think this honestly goes back to your feelings on Avery Johnson versus my feelings on Avery Johnson.
No doubt.
Which is like, I think you have a little more confidence and faith in him.
I do.
Than I do. Especially on the road, he hasn't impressed me yet. And to me, and we'll get to our score predictions later, I think.
Yeah.
But that to me is what gives me the most confidence about this. Is I think Colorado has a chance to make him pass more than he wants to. And if that's the case, then I feel good about it.
Yeah, just one more thing before you
Yeah,
go.
no, go.
You're completely right. Avery Johnson, to me, is the key to this game. When they got killed by Baylor a few weeks ago, he threw 2 interceptions. DJ Giddens lost the fumble. That happens. Something similar that happens again on Saturday. They're going to lose to Colorado. Whichever team I think takes care of the football better, Shedeur can't afford another early game interception like he had against UCF, or obviously the pick six like he had against Nebraska. That can't happen this weekend against this team. So I think another big thing to watch is just the turnover battle. Whoever takes care of the football, whichever team forces the other team into a mistake or a turnover, I think is going to have the upper hand. And, again, it's going to be close to a 50-50 game, I think, as we're going to see Colorado play all season.
I think Colorado's most direct path to winning this weekend is something that we don't really see from this team, and that's a fast start.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because I really think that you can snowball things against Kansas State and put them behind in their game script, their game flow. So if they come out, as you said, we can't have an early interception this week. You just can't have that. You can't give them an extra possession that early. But if you steal one from them early, and you're able to put 10-plus points on them and build that lead before we even get to halftime, I think that Kansas State, as we said yesterday, this is not a team built to play from behind. So if you get them down early and you get an early turnover or turnover on downs, just something to kind of flip the game early on in the first quarter, then I feel really, really good about Colorado's chances of winning.
Avery Johnson has only thrown for more than 200 yards in a game in his very young career once. He's only done it one time. Now, and he's also only averaging 7 yards per attempt this season, which is 13th in the Big 12. So that kind of puts in perspective where he's at as a passer right now. But at the same time, he's averaging 7.3 yards per carry, which leads all Power 4 quarterbacks in college football. So you kind of see the duality in his game and kind of where they need him to be successful, what he needs to do for Kansas State to be successful. So again, that's just gonna be fascinating to see how he plays. I think that's where this matchup kind of lies.
I'm very excited to see the rush plan that Robert Livingston and Coach Dancy come up with.
Yeah,
because you can't pin your ears back against Avery Johnson, but I know that. Robert Livingston's coached against Lamar Jackson how many times? Not comparing Avery Johnson to Lamar Jackson, but the point is when you face a quarterback that's incredibly mobile like that, you have to have a different plan about how you're going to get after the passer. I'm very excited to see if they can execute keeping him in the pocket, because if you can do that, you're going to make him uncomfortable.
Oh yeah,
even more uncomfortable than if you're getting guys back there and he's having to run around. He's fine doing that. He'd be much more uncomfortable if you essentially put a U around him and make him play from in there.
If this turns into just a shootout, I feel great about Colorado's chances.
That's what I was gonna say. Is I don't know if I envision a world where this game goes into the 30s and Colorado doesn't win.
Exactly. Like, at what point? What does Colorado have to score for you to say, okay, they win this game? Because I think it is 30-31 points.
Yeah, that's right around where I have it.
I get the feeling that this is a game that comes down to who has the ball last too.
That's also true. If Kansas State is actually able to manufacture these long drives where they can stick to running the football,
right? And
maybe they get a big return or something too that also helps them out in the game flow. I think that's their recipe to kind of keep it close.
For sure. And obviously that limits Colorado's offensive opportunities as well.
Exactly.
Which is something. And again, going back to Avery Johnson only having that one game in his young career with 200-plus passing yards. The one game Colorado lost this season, obviously on the road in Nebraska, Dylan Raiola, another very young quarterback, unpolished quarterback, only threw for about 185 yards. Yep. He made a few plays here and there with his arms, but it was really ball control, controlling the clock, and leaning on your running game. And obviously, again, we mentioned the Shedeur early pick six. That kind of set the tone for the game, but Nebraska didn't have to do a lot offensively in that game to win.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Thankfully, Kansas State doesn't have the ability to rush the passer and disrupt.
Yeah, I'm not trying to give that impression.
But it is true. Honestly, both of these teams' one-loss remind me a lot of each other.
Same.
Because they both got just hit with an avalanche.
Right.
Yeah.
And were never able to dig themselves out.
That's what, to me, makes this game so difficult to project. You know what I'm saying? But I can't wait to watch it.
Well, let's just do it. What's your score prediction? Let's get this out of the way.
Colorado 34, K-State 28.
Yeah, so I'm in that area as well, and I honestly, there's a part of me that wants that wanted to just say like Colorado stops the run and they just take this thing and run with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remembered that every game in the Coach Prime era at Folsom Field has been a 1-score game except for the blowout of Nebraska last year. Something about it, man. Those games just get tight in Folsom.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I'm keeping this in that same range. I'm going to say Colorado 31, Kansas State 27.
You?
He already said 37, 34?
37, 35.
35, okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's pick the rest of the games on the Big 12 slate. But first, shout out to our friends over at UC Health and their Ready, Set, Co challenge with Coach Prime as the Chief Motivation Officer to get Colorado back to its rightful place as the healthiest state in the country. Big emphasis on sleep. We got a late game. Get your sleep. We got to be ready for this one. We got to be in top tier form, loud, ready to go. And the 12th man has to be a factor for the Buffs in Folsom Field this weekend. So everyone, make sure you get your sleep and rest up.
People talking about maybe a pregame nap. Won't
Smart.
be me, but
I wouldn't rule it out.
Me neither. I'm not rolling that out either at this point.
But let's get Colorado back to where it belongs as the healthiest state in the country. If you want to join UC Health's Ready, Set, Co challenge, click the link in the show notes or go to www.uchealth.org/readysetco. You're right, Kyoko. Don't sleep on sleep.
also shout out to our friends at Promotico who created our absolutely stunning tour bus that we'll be hopping on to go to. Well, we will be hopping on it on Saturday.
Yes, sir.
To go to the tailgate. Can't wait for that. And can't say enough about the service that they provide and just how comprehensive. That's the word I was looking for. How comprehensive it is. Mm-hmm. They did the wrap. They provided us with the driver. They provided us with the vehicle. They have all the scheduling set up for their driver to make sure he's in the right place at the right time. It's really, really cool. So if you are, a band who's looking to go on tour, heck, anything like that, you're looking to promote your company with a beautiful bus like that, make sure you check out Promotico. They are, as far as I know, the best in the business. They also do like ESPN's College Game Day bus.
Yep. Tough.
They've done tour buses for like big touring artists, so check them out.
All right, to the picks we go. I put all these lines in here before, but tomorrow's Utah game just had a wrench thrown at it before we went live today because Cam Rising is going to make his return to the field.
Oh,
no way.
Yeah.
That is an interesting little wrinkle in the Big 12 picture.
So the line now at Bet365, when I was writing these like an hour and a half before the show, it was Utah -4. It is now Utah -6, going on the road to Tempe to take on Arizona State, one of the most surprising teams in the Big 12 this season. But Utah, I mean, to hang in there at 4-1 when your starting quarterback and the player who kind of makes everything work for you is out, now he's back. Utah -6. Where are you guys going?
So Cam Rising really playing. It ain't like a couple weeks ago where they said he was maybe going to play. And
Brett McMurphy reported it.
if Rising gets started and he's out there, I'm going with Utah for sure.
All right. Well, I'm going to take the Friday night home team 8:30 p.m. kickoff. Arizona State.
Yeah.
They're going to be going crazy out there. So I'll take Arizona State. I'm here for the chaos. And I think that this Big 12 is just going to get more and more and more chaotic. And this would be a chaotic result.
I'm also going to take the Sun Devils.
Dang, I thought I was going to be on him here.
Friday night in the Big 12. I love what Scadaboo is doing. There's been a lot of great backs in this conference, and we've talked a lot about that. He is up there.
Yeah.
He's got to be one of the top 3 backs, I think, in this conference right now. Jordan Tyson's emergence. They have weapons on ASU. Like, you could say what you want about Sam Levitt. They have weapons on offense. So.
Yeah. Sam Levitt, I think, has looked pretty darn good.
He has. Next game, Saturday at 1:30, we have the Cincinnati Bearcats traveling to Orlando to take on the UCF Golden Knights. As it stands right now, the line is 3.5 in favor of the home team, UCF.
Man, is this game in jeopardy at all from the weather?
I was just thinking that. I have no idea.
All right. Again, thinking of all of our friends down there
Definitely.
in Florida. Hope everyone's staying safe.
What's the line on that one?
-3.5 UCF. It's still scheduled, so
Man, last week I said I think UCF might just be broken, and I was right.
they did go to the swamp last week.
I know, and that's what I was gonna say. Now they're back home. This might be like a get right, just like steer the ship, get a hold of the steering wheel type of game for them. I think Gus Malzahn puts together a great game plan, and they find a way to win this one.
I think UCF is broken.
It's quite possible that they just might not.
I think that loss to Florida, even on the road last week, is pretty unforgivable, especially after how you played the previous week against Colorado. Obviously, they've already had a few guys enter the portal, redshirt midseason. I should say redshirt, not enter the portal. So, yeah, I don't really know what the state of that locker room is. And Cincinnati has kind of surprised me. I thought for sure they would be one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the conference this year. And maybe they are at the end of it. But right now, they seem to be playing decent football. So I'll take Cincinnati for the road upset.
I'm also taking Cincinnati. Dante Corleone for the Bearcats, one of the best defensive tackles in the country.
Yep.
Do they call him like the Godfather or something?
I have no idea.
We gotta have a sick
They
nickname
have
for
to.
him.
Cincinnati also scored 41 last time they were out against Texas Tech. I think this team can score, and I think they have the players in the key positions to make it tough for UCF. Take the Bearcats.
That one's. I just love the Big 12, dude. Every game intrigues me.
It's awesome, huh? How about this one? Arizona traveling to BYU to take on the number 14 and undefeated BYU Cougars. Arizona, tough loss last week against Texas Tech. But BYU, only 3.5-point favorites.
Go ahead.
It's got to end eventually. BYU just can't keep getting away with this. They can't keep winning this way. I'll take Arizona.
Wow. I'm taking BYU.
I don't know. I'm gonna end up going leaning on coaching here. I think Kalani Sitake is a better coach
I agree.
than what they have at Arizona and Brent Brennan.
Fair enough.
So give me BYU. But it does feel like Arizona, again, I'm talking about chaos. They're kind of the chaos team. Like, they could really mess up the Big 12 again and just shake up the standings again. You know, they got
man.
Utah. They found a way.
Yep.
They actually always weirdly play well in this, at Utah. So maybe at BYU they just
Only
like going
40
to Utah.
miles south, bro.
But I'm gonna let the tiebreaker be coaching. I think when we did our coaching rankings, I was really high on Kalani Sitake, and I've always felt like he was a really good coach. That transition year for them last year was really tough, and now they're just kind of back rolling.
Yep. Next game, the highest ranked team in the Big 12, Iowa State, traveling to Morgantown to take on West Virginia. West Virginia with a commanding game over Oklahoma State last weekend. They rushed for like damn near 400 yards, I think. Iowa State has a great rushing attack as well. A big test for both teams at 2-0 in this conference. It is Iowa State -3 on the road.
Yeah, I like Iowa State. Their offense is just so fun, man. Rocco Beck is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the conference. They have weapons all over at receiver. I like Iowa State in this spot here.
I'm gonna keep up with the trend of me and Scott not agreeing on these games. Give me West Virginia. Again, chaos conference. Traveling to Morgantown for a big game like this, a night game, is going to be very, very difficult.
Place is gonna be nuts.
The same way that I guess you felt about BYU of like it's got to end at some point. I kind of feel that way about West Virginia or about Iowa State.
Yeah.
So give me West Virginia in a close and gross, just an ugly win.
I'll take Iowa State. I really like their offense. I think they have a nice back as well in Jalen Jackson.
Man, and I turned on that game last week when they were down, I think 14-3 to Baylor. I'm like, oh, here we go. And then Iowa State just dominated the entire rest of the game, which had me wondering, like, how did they ever get down 14-3?
Yep. I mean, we already gave our score predictions, but we've talked a lot about this game. Kansas State at Colorado. Kansas State, the line is now down to 3.5.
Yeah, that's now been cut in half.
Yep.
So last week, it's just so interesting, and I never really know what exactly to make of this, but last week was the opposite. Line opened at 11.
Yeah, right.
They ran the sharp money,
Yep.
ran it all the way up to 15.5, I believe, at one point. And so they were out on CU last week. Now the sharp money's coming in on CU. So just kind of an interesting thing to pay attention to there. It's rare for lines to move this much. Back-to-back weeks, massive shifts in the line for CU. But yeah, I mean, obviously I like the Buffs.
Yep, taking the Buffs.
I like the Buffs to cover.
That's it for this week. Buys are Baylor, Kansas, TCU, Houston.
Yeah, I don't see Houston out there.
I think that's it. So, and Oklahoma State isn't playing this week as well.
Kansas relieved to not have to play a football game this week.
Oklahoma State probably the same.
Yeah.
You guys got anything else before we get to the chat?
Let's get to the chat.
Let's get it.
All right. No break. To the chat we go. Get your questions in now. We appreciate all the super chats. We got some extra time today, though, so if you want to ask something, get it in. KB, did more linemen redshirt? The line looks paper thin. So if you check that depth chart that came out ahead of the week, there was no Yakari Walker, no Wyatt Hummel, no Tyler Johnson. That's all I know.
That's correct.
That's all I know.
I still feel okay about the depth, though. I mean, you've still got, Justin Mayers, Kareem Harden,
Phil Houston,
Khalil Benson. Like, you've got pieces here still. My guess, center obviously is thin, but my guess is you would use one of those guards and move Tyler Brown to center if you had to. I'll knock on wood. Hopefully they don't have to do that. But I still think it's not like you need on the offensive line 3 deep at every position.
No.
You need to have guys that you can slot in places. I feel like we still have that.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I believe Kansas State's tied for the Big 12 lead in sacks so far this season. So they can generate a pass rush. They don't have a dominant, kind of single
blitz
pass
a lot.
rusher.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's typically how they make their hay. But this offensive line is going to have to ball. They played really well against UCF after a tough game against Baylor. I think Shedeur was sacked 7-8 times that week. But they're going to have to put together another really solid week here.
Yeah, I'll say this on blitzing. Good luck just with your secondary being shorthanded when you're going to blitz
Oh, yeah.
against Shedeur and this group of wide receivers.
and as we've seen, you can get to Shedeur, but all he needs is a spin,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden we might be going 50 yards the other way.
Yep.
On the depth of the offensive line, we've got depth. It's just young. Zach Owens, Peyton Kirkland, Cash Cleveland. You obviously don't want to get into it right now, but they have guys.
And by the way, I heard from a player on the defensive side of the ball really great things about the way Zach Owens has looked.
Yep. Kevin Dorsey says, do you guys think next year is a rebuilding year? I think you have to look at it in some sorts that way. I don't think the coaching staff would look at it that way, though.
Yeah, rebuilding, I wouldn't go with, but the expectations will be different. You're not going to have the best quarterback in college football and the best overall player in college football.
Yep.
So expectations will be different, but
Yeah.
I don't think rebuilding is necessarily the right word for it. Rebuilding was going from 1-11 to 4-8.
Yes.
That was a rebuilding year. The overall baseline of talent on this team heading into next year compared to what they started with is so far above it that just rebuild doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think a lot depends on who's under center next year, right? Say
Definitely.
they don't get a 5-star, one of those guys they're after, Juju or Keelon, and they end up going the transfer portal route, and they get a proven, experienced quarterback to plug in for just next season. The expectations could be similar in the Big 12 with all the young talent on both sides of the ball that, this recruiting staff is kind of got into Boulder.
And that's what everyone else is doing right now, right?
Right, yeah.
Oregon brings in Dylan
Exactly.
Gabriel. Ohio State brings in
Will Howard.
Notre Dame brings in Riley Leonard. Everyone's kind of just saying, give us a senior who wants a bigger stage.
Yep. Kyle asks, is it likely we will get both of these 5-star quarterbacks or one or the other? I seriously doubt you get both. There's
Almost no one ever
Yeah.
gets 2 5-star quarterbacks in one class, or even 2 highly rated quarterbacks in one class.
Yeah. Jamel asks, Cam Silmon-Craig had a device around his neck after he removed the helmet. Oh, yeah. Any clue what it is? I think it's just a neck fan, honestly.
No,
What is it?
It's
for head injuries.
for concussion
Really?
prevention.
Yeah.
I'm not going to act like I'm some sort of head doctor, but it has something to do with blood flow and
Yeah.
all of that to your head.
Interesting.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm not sure the specifics, but that's pretty much it for sure. I know it has something to do with, and obviously we know Cam suffered that head injury week
Right.
1, so I'm sure that has something to do with it.
Yep, and he's had it on. I mean, when we talked to him in the press conference, he had it on.
Yep.
So
What's up, Ivan? What is more likely this Saturday? 100 yards rushing for Avery Johnson or the Buffs get their first 100-yard rusher in a game?
I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing if Vegas had odds on it, they would have the odds stacked towards Avery Johnson.
Yes. More likely would be definitely be that.
Yep. But the thing, like I said with Avery Johnson, if you can stop the traditional run game, which Colorado has been so good at this year, it makes it harder for him to get his.
Yep.
Now, as Scott pointed out, Colorado has struggled allowing one or so big plays a game to one of those guys. I would not be surprised if Avery Johnson has a big play on the ground that, boosts up his stats. And I think Colorado can afford to allow a couple big bursts. That's what the whole stop rate thing is all about. That, PFF has been really high on Colorado. Not really high. There's the numbers say that Colorado is one of the best teams in the country at getting stops. They get off the field 75% of the time they go out there. They've allowed big plays, but they don't allow those to snowball into other big plays.
Yeah, that's well said. I think Avery Johnson going for 100 yards is probably more likely because all it takes is one play, 140, 50-yard chunk or whatnot, and you're, halfway there. You can say that for Colorado's running backs as well, but I feel like there's 3 guys, right, in Colorado's backfield who I feel like should get a handful of touches this weekend, making it a bit harder for one of those guys to go over 100. So, yeah.
I don't want to give too much away from our pregame show tomorrow, but I have a really good feeling about Isaiah Gustave this week. I think this could be his breakout game.
Taking my guy already. Sleeper says, any update on Juju? I mean, it's kind of the same. For better or for worse. Like, there's really no news. Like, they're still trying to flip him. They're still trying to recruit him. But as we've seen, it's going to take a lot, I think, to get him to flip from USC. But they're going to try.
And I'd love to just hear an update from Juju because he had said he wants to shut it down before the season, and that didn't happen. So I'd just love to hear from him why he's kind of extended things.
He's obviously giving it great thought.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that when someone's committed and you're trying to flip them, the longer it plays out, the better it is for you.
Definitely.
2 favorite uncles asked, will we play a bit more zone this game?
They played a lot of zone last week, at least compared to the amount of zone they had played in the rest of the season. But I would say yes, probably more zone this week, mostly because you want your defense to have their eyes on Avery Johnson.
I think you can just do it because these receivers aren't top tier. You don't have to try and man up and, contest every throw. I think you can play zone, force Avery to make some throws, force wide receivers to get open.
But I do think you will see plenty of man as well because from what I've seen, Avery Johnson doesn't like throwing into man quite as much as zone. So it's a catch-22, right? You can play more man, but you better have someone with their eyes on him.
Big Robert Livingston game once again, right? Because that switching it up between man and zone is going to be huge. Because I agree, like you mentioned, Avery Johnson does not want to throw into man coverage, into tight coverage, especially with Travis Hunter, Preston Hodge is on the other side, of that pass attempt. And then you man is just going to be tough. We've seen it bite this defense in the back a few times so far this season. And again, playing man coverage and allowing Avery Johnson to escape the pocket without eyes on him could be an issue. So again, I trust Robert Livingston coming up with a great plan, and I feel like he kind of alluded to something I asked him last week too, just about. Actually, I don't even remember what I asked him, but just his answer was great because most of his answers are. But he was talking about forcing opponents to, play left-handed, so to speak, right? Using the old Bill Belichick adage, taking away what your opponent does best. And that obviously starts with DJ Giddens and Avery Johnson's leg. So we know Livingston is going to have a plan for that. I'm fascinated to see how it's deployed.
Well, and I mean, they've done that at such a high rate.
Yeah, exactly.
They stopped R.J. Harvey, and then even going back to North Dakota State. Do you remember the narrative coming into that game is, oh man, they've got this power running game with all of these exotic looks that they're going to give, and they didn't run the ball for anything in that game. I think it was 3.3 yards per carry.
Yep.
Quarterback was the leading rusher that game.
Quarterback runs.
Yep. Well, and Cam Miller, by the way, is having a hell of a season since that, including that game and since that game. I think he has 15 total touchdowns and 0 interceptions.
Yep.
So, and then, just each and every week they've kind of been able to do the Bill Belichick takeaway that your best threat.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, that's still Giddens. As
Oh yeah, for sure.
Avery Johnson is a pretty special athlete, but that's still their bread and butter. Is they want to be able to gash you just handing it off to Giddens.
Yep. Two favorite uncles again. Who has the next best defense in the Big 12 outside of CU? By points per game, it is Iowa State. They've only allowed 10 points per game.
Holy smokes!
I feel like Utah's got to be up there.
Utah would be in
They're
line.
at 15 points per game. Iowa State also the most efficient in terms of yards per game, and Utah's second. So.
Well, and Utah has also had to do it without their quarterback, which I know that sounds weird when we're talking about defense, but so much more pressure has been put on their defense in these games.
Yep. TJ asked, do they plan on playing Cardell Thomas? I do not know. Buff Boyd, apparently Rising is going to start for Utah this week. If true, and if he can stay on the field, how does that change your view of the championship contenders and our game against them?
I mean, from the start, you've always had to consider Utah.
Right.
And so they've always been in it, and it was always about, can they get Cam back? When do they get Cam back? And is he still himself when he comes back? Obviously, it's just a hand injury, not something bigger that's tougher to come back from. But there is a chance that they go, and I know I picked ASU, but there's a chance they beat them like 40-10.
Yep.
And everyone's like, oh shit, we forgot about Utah. They're still Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're as long as Cam is in the mix, and if he's healthy this weekend and moving forward, they are the contender in the Big 12 as far as I'm concerned.
And they were who was the game that they played? Was that Baylor?
Last week?
where they were that Cam got hurt.
Cam got hurt. Yeah, it was Baylor.
And they were what? They were up 21-0 or something when he got hurt, and then
I think it was
nothing in the second half.
23-0.
Yeah. So they were rolling when he was in there.
Yep. Elizabeth asks, any chance Baby T.O. returns for Arizona game? Maybe.
He's out of the yellow, right?
Yeah. There's just so many other receivers ahead of him.
Yeah.
Like we forget he's a young guy.
Totally.
Wouldn't expect to see him. I mean, if we're not seeing Terrell Timmons Jr., who I think is a really good player, shouldn't expect to see Cordell Russell.
I mean, Draylen's ahead of him.
Right.
But maybe there's a couple plays that they have,
Sure.
because he has a unique skill set.
Yeah. I mean, what happens when Cam Michael comes back? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot. G6S, do you think Travis needs to win Big 12 Offensive and Defensive Player of the Week to solidify his case for the Heisman? If so, which week do you see it happening? I don't think that matters necessarily.
Speaking of solidifying his case for a Heisman, I wanted to ask Coach Prime this at the presser on Tuesday, but they ran out of time in the presser. Did y'all see when he, on Twitter, I think last week, he tweeted at Coach Carl Reed, like, what's up, my brother? Like, I ain't heard from you in a minute. And Coach Reed responded back, like, what's good?
Yeah.
You need to put Travis back there, return a punt, take it to the curb. That's going to lock up the Heisman. I want to ask Coach Prime, like, has he thought about that? Is that something that he would consider, or is that just a flat no? But I feel like that'd be fascinating. I'm not going to lie.
I think it's in the quote-unquote playbook if it's needed.
Sure.
So
Breaking case of emergency.
Late game.
well, yeah, you're
Late game,
down.
you need it.
You're down 7 with 1:20 left, and you're
Yeah.
getting a punt from they're punting from their own end zone. I would not be surprised to see Travis go back there.
Yeah.
But here's how I feel about it. Did you guys see the Vandy coach's speech at halftime?
No.
God, it fired me up because he was so calm, and I feel like that calmness went into his team when he went out there.
Oh,
but
yeah.
he just said to those guys, no one has to do anything different. No one has to do anything special. Don't feel like you have to go outside of who you are to beat Alabama. We're beating them right now. If we go out there and we just do what we do and do it well, we're gonna win this game. That's how I feel about Travis Hunter winning the Heisman. He doesn't have to do anything different.
Yep.
Just keep doing
Just
what you're
keep being
doing.
Travis Hunter, and he's gonna win the Heisman Trophy.
I agree.
I feel that.
Easy Does It says, does Cam Silmon-Craig have another year? No, he does not. And do you have to move schools to be a graduate? I'm pretty sure you do, yes. Kyoko says, off topic, have you been to Casa Bonita? Since I've been here, I think they just opened it up to...
Yeah, they reopened it.
Where's it at?
It's Colfax and Wads?
It's Colfax and West,
Yeah.
way west.
Interesting.
I have, yes. I went there for my 16th birthday.
Go crazy.
It was right after the South Park episode had come out.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, like, I remember as a kid, like, hearing about that on South Park,
Yeah.
and like just thinking that it was just a fake place.
Yeah, I mean, back then it was literally known for how bad the food was, and so since the creators of South Park bought it and have turned around the food.
That's what happened. Okay,
Yes.
I didn't know that. Okay,
Yes. So apparently the food is much better now, but I have not been back to the new edition. But the old, yes, I've been, and it was epic, in like the corniest way. But
I will
you just
go.
got to know what it is.
I will go at some point.
Oh man.
East Coast Kev is back. Appreciate all the super chats from you, man. Says, imagine you're Shedeur on your new NFL team. You get to take a wide receiver with you, excluding Travis. Which one will you take with you? I pick Will Shepherd only if Miami drafts him.
LJ Wester, man, the guy he recruited to Boulder.
I'll take Jimmy Horn.
I was gonna say Jimmy Horn. Yeah.
Fair
Could
enough.
let's just talk about Miami for a second.
Hell of an option.
Could you imagine Shedeur Sanders, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Jimmy Horn in the same offense?
They're just gonna. It's 500 every play.
Will Mike McDaniel calling the shots? Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be crazy.
man.
I actually just saw some like a random Pittsburgh Steelers fan post a LeJontay like highlight tape like Steelers next slot receiver.
that
I'm like,
too.
that's okay. They starting to wake up on LJ. That's what's up. That's hilarious.
I think we've got, including Travis, 4 NFL wide receivers on this team.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
At the least. I mean, that's just the guys eligible now.
and it's crazy that just the role that Jimmy plays in this offense. Just because I look out at like, I don't know, let's just say the Denver Broncos, and I'm like, God, they would kill to have a player that's dynamic on offense, and yet depending on the game, but he's not a top 2 option usually on this offense.
Yeah. Mhm.
Whereas like the Denver Broncos would kill to have a player that electric on their team.
Yes.
Kansas State head coach Chris Kleiman said Jimmy Horn Jr. this week is a phenomenal player. Wasn't even asked about him. Brought
Yeah,
him
he
up
shot
on the
him-
vote.
yep.
And that was second time. I think Coach Rule said something similar about Jimmy in week 2, ahead of week 2. So
Maybe
he's,
it's because they like
they're
to
noticing.
play that cover 2 zone, and they saw him
He's
just
burning
absolutely
that.
torch
Yeah.
that against North Dakota State.
Right. JP's Revenge says, use this as a feed Isaiah button. Let 23 eat.
There you go.
East Coast Kev again. If we can get through this game, the Big 12 is ours. I still feel like they might try to snub Travis Hunter because people don't like Prime.
I completely agree with that first part. I feel like if Colorado wins on Saturday, I don't think there's a game the rest of the way in the regular season that I won't be picking Colorado or that they shouldn't be favored in. Maybe you take out Utah, assuming Cam Rising is still in the lineup, but CU takes care of business this weekend. Again, I think they should be one of top 2 or 3 favorites to appear in the Big 12 championship game in December.
Well, I think I think Vegas will have them as number 1 if they win this game.
All right. Thanks for coming down again, brother. Appreciate you.
Absolutely appreciate y'all boys for having me.
Good
Blast
stuff,
as
man.
always.
We'll have Scott back next week for sure. We have pregame show tomorrow, and then it's time.
Finally.
Time.
See you guys
I'm just
then.
excited to be up there in Boulder tomorrow. get the game day vibes rolling.
Yep. Last minute super chat from Kev says, by the way, I picked Travis to win the Heisman and the odds were plus 3,000 months ago.
Let's go.
Hell of a pick.
Hope you cash that in.
Appreciate you,
So
Kev.
crazy.
Thanks for all the support, everyone. Thank you guys for coming out here. See everyone tomorrow. Let's go Buffs.
Let's go Buffs.
We all silly like the mayor.